Okay, it looks like it is 11:30. I'm going to get started in the interest of time. I will go through some general housekeeping items. And as I do that, just please continue to add your names to the chat for attendance. And I did just want to say thank you to everyone who's volunteering to be on the New Mix Programs Project Advisory Committee. This is what we are calling PAC Meeting 3A, and will be the first of what we are anticipating of being a series of 3 meetings. And as I go through this general housekeeping information, I just ask that all PAC members please remain muted. Again, please add your names to the chat as well as your affiliations, as that's how we are taking attendance. I don't see anyone logged on to this meeting via phone quite yet. But if anyone pops up, I will be asking those of you attending via telephone to state who you are. And I do also want to mention that this meeting is being recorded. So if you do choose to turn on your camera, we'll just consider that as your consent for using your likeness in this recording. And again, we are using Zoom, as you know, and this application has many features that you are able to use. Within the reactions pane, you can raise your hand for any questions at any time. And you also have the chat box function where you can insert any comments or questions via text at any time. During this meeting, we do have one guest speaker, that is Katie Tice. She is our urban design lead. And you will also be hearing from our deputy project manager, David Schweitzer, during this meeting. And I did want to know, we do know that this is occurring during lunchtime. So if any of you need to eat or do any of that during this time, feel free to enjoy your meal. But just please be muted, as we don't want any chewing in the background, but you are more than welcome to eat your lunch. And now that I'm done with this basic housekeeping, I will move right into the presentation. I don't see anyone on the phone line at this time. So with that, I'll get into today's
Sorry
agenda.
to interrupt, Naomi. It's Eric from HVA. I just had a quick question about the website for the New Mix.
Yeah, can I, do you mind adding that question to the chat and we can get to it via text? Is that okay?
Well, just real quick, it was just about the meeting minutes, and they're not on for meeting 2C or 2B. I'm just wondering the delay on that, and if you can address that.
Yep, we are working internally here to get those meeting minutes online as soon as possible. So hoping to get those on, as soon as possible.
Okay, can we get some timeline? Because some of those conversations in the meeting minutes are critical for us for sharing with other stakeholders and community members who are impacted by the project. And there's a lot of great conversation there. So it's, just wondering if they could just get uploaded rather soon.
Yeah, we are definitely working on getting those uploaded as soon as possible, hoping to definitely get it out before the end of the week if we can resolve our internal process within that timeline.
Okay, thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
All right. So to continue, this is on the screen. We have today's agenda. We are starting with PAC meeting 2C. We're going to go through those poll questions and the common exercise cards results. I did send those slides that were in the 2C meeting to all PAC members. And as I sent those to you all, I just want to note that I will be going through that section a little quickly. So if you do have any questions, please add them to the chat and we will get them addressed. And if we do get to a good stopping point, we'll stop and address those comments and questions. After that section, we'll go into our introduction of our universe of alternatives, how they were developed, and we'll go through 3 of the 4 alternative groupings that make up that universe. We'll go through a visualization of the existing conditions and go and present those 3 groupings. After that, we'll have an open discussion and we'll have some concluding slides. And I do want to mention that opportunities to provide comments and ask questions will occur throughout the presentation. As always, feel free to utilize the chat function or raise your hand at any time during the presentation. I or one of the chat moderators will be alerted, and once we get to a good stopping point, we'll be able to address those. And just to bring everyone up to speed, since our last meeting, PAC members have been providing input on the Pell Study program and checking your emails for information. The program team has been obtaining that input from agencies and PAC members and stakeholders, as well as the public, and refining our preliminary purpose and needs statement, which includes those transportation-related goals and objectives, and then also using everything that we've discussed thus far for developing that universe of alternatives, as well as their screening criteria, which we'll get into a little bit more during this presentation. So this part of the presentation, we'll go through our poll questions that were provided at PAC 2C, or given at the January workshop, actually, and for PAC 2B. And so just to explain here what we're looking at, we have our the prompt that we asked the PAC members down here, and they were asked to provide your level of agreement with a rating of 1 through 5, 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. As we go through these slides, you'll see numbers atop of these poll bars, and those are just the number of participants who selected that answer. And again, I will be breezing through these rather quickly, so if you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or ask them in the chat. So with this first poll regarding congestion, it appears that congestion does not influence all PAC members' travel patterns. Congestion has been identified as a deficiency of the Mixmaster, so improving those operational deficiencies that contribute to congestion, while maintaining that interchange system is needed. And congestion reduction strategies need to be further investigated for us. In this second prompt, the results showed that the Mixmaster is the preferred mode of travel for Waterbury, across Waterbury for PAC members, where the local roadway should be utilized for cross-city travel, providing or accommodating viable alternate routes for travel across Waterbury through improving the local roadway frontage road system may improve, that user satisfaction, but also reduce congestion. In this third prompt, the insight that these results provided us is that the PAC members believe that the local road network is difficult to navigate, and this supports our need to improve those identified deficiencies of the associated local road network with the Mixmaster to provide those viable alternate routes for the intracity travel. And again, improvements to the local roadway could reduce congestion on the Mixmaster, and we could also, enhance and maintain that connectivity that is very, very important. And with this fourth poll results, PAC members believe that the Mixmaster acts as a barrier to bicycle and pedestrian travel, with very limited opportunities to cross the Naugatuck River via bike and pedestrian travel. These responses support the need to improve those deficiencies that may inhibit bicycle and pedestrian travel. Continuing here with the fifth prompt, safety has been identified as a concern of the Mixmaster, although feeling unsafe while traveling on the Mixmaster appears to not be the sentiment of all PAC members. The Mixmaster safety concerns are further examined in our next poll, which specifically refers to those entrance and exit ramps of the Mixmaster. With this poll, PAC members believe that the conditions of the entrance and exit ramps are, a prominent safety concern, with an overwhelming majority of responses being agree or strongly agree. Safety has been identified as an issue of the Mixmaster due to its high crash rates. And so the need to improve those deficiencies, such as geometric and operational deficiencies that contribute to that high crash rate, is considered to be, critical in improving the Mixmaster interchange. And then finally, this last poll question on the needs. PAC members' responses were pretty much split on this prompt regarding congestion impacting the local economy. Despite congestion not appearing to deter users from utilizing the system, improving those deficiencies to reduce congestion is needed. And the system's impact on the local economy does warrant further investigation by the study team. Okay. In this series of perspective questions, PAC members were asked for their level of their opinion on the level of importance of each of the prompt, choosing a rating of 1 to 5, with 1 being not important and 5 being very important. Similar to the slides that we just went through and the polls that we just went through, the prompt or the level of importance is down on the bottom here, 1 through 5, and the numbers on top of the bars are the number of poll participants who selected each section. So for this first poll, it appears that reducing congestion is seen as a high priority to PAC members for the success of the NUMICS program. For the second prompt, facilitating connectivity within Waterbury through the local road network is considered a high priority to PAC members for the success of the NUMICS program. In this third poll prompt, the insight that this provided us was that improving the system performance, including those connections between the highway and Waterbury, businesses, employers, and the neighborhoods is considered a high priority to PAC members for the success of the NUMICS program. And then continuing here, the insight that this prompt provided was that this response had a wider spread, and the insight that was provided by this is that facilitating connectivity within Waterbury through bicycle and pedestrian improvements and improving those connections is considered just a priority of PAC members for the success of the NUMICS program. And then this final poll prompt is relative to reduction of potential crashes, and the results were overwhelmingly high on the important and very important, and so reducing the potential for crashes is considered a high priority to PAC members for the success of the NUMICS program. Okay, moving into our common exercise results. We asked all PAC members to identify needs or deficiencies for this prompt. These were compiled to identify the themes that, and those themes were developed into word bubbles. And as a quick reminder, the size of the theme, the size of each word indicates the frequency of their use. So the bigger the word, the more it was repeated by PAC member responses. So for this first prompt for identifying the needs or deficiencies, 18 unique themes were identified, and the most identified were the closely spaced entrance and exit ramps as a need or deficiency. The second most identified were left-hand entrance and exit ramps as a deficiency, and then the third most identified was the congestion and the directional signage as a deficiency of the Mixmaster. For the goals and objectives, the most identified goal and objective was to improve the safety of those entrance and exit ramps. And then the second and third most identified theme were reducing congestion and reducing interchange complexity. And then finally here on the common exercise results for the key context features, 30 unique landmarks and destinations and features were identified. The most identified landmark was the Palace Theater. The second most was the Green. And then the third most identified were the Clock Tower, downtown Waterbury, Holy Land Cross, and the Waterbury hospitals. Okay, So right now we are going into the very brief introduction to the universe of alternatives, beginning with how it was developed. So before we get into the universe of alternatives, I'd like to just show you all where we have been and where we are with regard to our Pell study steps. Together, we have gone through these first 5 steps on your screen, and now we are currently at the develop evaluation criteria. The study team is currently developing not only that evaluation criteria for our Pell study screening process, but also within this milestone is developing that universe of alternatives. We are trying to identify and develop potential solutions for the identified transportation needs and efficiencies for our study area. And again, all this information has gone through, all these steps we've gone through together thus far. And we will go through the 2 today. Again, with the steps that we have gone through thus far, where can you find this information? I just wanted to give a brief reminder that the NUMICS website will be home to the Pell study documents. And during the Pell study, the Pell process, these documents will be considered living and will be updated and made available for the public and to the public for review and comment as the Pell study progresses. These initial documents are part of the Pell study process, and we'll be documenting each step of the process along the way. One of the first initial Pell documents I wanted to briefly introduce is the framework and methodology. This basically just details our Pell study process. It's more of an overview, and you can look through it so you can get an idea of where our Pell study and the steps for our Pell study are. Another document that we have gone through, or just the pieces we have gone through together, is the preliminary purpose and needs statement. And again, this details our draft preliminary purpose, our needs, and our goals and objective statements with that supportive data. This report will be updated as input is gained through our public and agency coordination. This report is being updated to incorporate the discussions that we've had as a PAC together. And this will be made available on the website for review and comment by everyone. And then finally, we have the analysis needs and efficiencies report, and we have gone through this before. And again, this identifies those constraints, including the natural and built conditions, any planning projects and studies that we've gone through, additional considerations and engineering analysis for our Pell study area. And again, I just want to mention that these documents will be made available on the website for anyone to look through and to provide their comments. I do want to just briefly mention that I am getting some feedback. So if anyone is not currently muted, I just ask that you to please mute yourself as we go through this presentation. Okay, thank you. And so as we've been discussing, this whole process is meant to find a solution for the future of the mixed master interchange through our use of our Pell study process. And our Pell study process really does act as a funnel where we have all these items at the top. They go through this analysis and process, and we come out with a range of reasonable alternatives and Pell recommendations. We are really just trying to get rid of the bad alternatives, items that are not going to be supported and have fatal flaws. And we want to make sure that when we get to these Pell recommendations, they are well supported and balance our transportation needs as well as the needs of the city of Waterbury. Today, we will be focusing on this universe of alternatives up here, and it does inform our level 1 results, which are our level 1 process, which we'll go through later on in our Pell study milestone 3, our PAC milestone 3 process. So The universal alternatives, I just want to give this very brief overview. These are conceptual level of engineering. We were really just putting some ideas to paper. And as the Pell study progresses, these alternatives will become more defined and clearer. Each concept that we will go through, they are flexible. And I do want to mention that favorable aspects of alternatives can be added to other alternatives, and unfavorable aspects can be subtracted. So these really are just flexible at this point. If there are, a feature that is what we consider to be favorable, we're going to refer to them as complementary. And I do want to note that these alternatives that make up the universal alternatives were identified through workshops, and they were based on the identification of constraints and challenges, our design standards that are federally and state mandated, understanding our program needs as well as the needs of the community, and input from a diverse team of experts, as well as determining the evaluation criteria that will be used to evaluate these alternatives. And at this time, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, David Schweitzer, and he's going to give you a brief overview of our existing conditions, and he'll present to you this video that we are about to see.
All right, thank you, Naomi. Yeah, what we have here is we have a visualization of the existing conditions that are out there. Now, this is a short video. It's about a little over a minute long. We're going to run through it at least twice. I mean, we can run through it more times also. First time through, I'm going to be narrating a little bit. We're going to stop at some key points. I'll point out some key features and go through some terms that we've been discussing throughout these PAC meetings. So if there are questions, please don't hesitate to ask them. I'll be glad to answer them. So before we start the video, just to orient you, this is the aerial view. North is to the top. You can see 84 running across from left to right, and then Route 8 carrying from pretty much from the top to the bottom, with the Naugatuck River paralleling it, and getting a good view of the core of the interchange. And then also looking at some of the landmarks like the Riverside Cemetery and Freight Street District. So as we start the video, we'll start coming down to ground view, or we'll be about, a few hundred feet off the ground. And we're going to approach the core of the interchange from the south. So here we are, we're looking north. And if you come from left to right, you can see the Riverside Cemetery off to the left. Then we have the stacked Route 8 structures. We have the Naugatuck River. We have the Connecticut Natural Gas Yard. We have Jackson Street, and then we have the railroad. You can see the stacked I-84 structures, running right across the middle there. And then we can also see some landmarks like Union Station and Waterbury Hospital. And then if you look off to the left edge, you can see that ridge line that really marks on the west edge of the interchange. As we advance further, moving in towards the core of the interchange, you get a better understanding of the complexity of this and also some of the verticality of this interchange. So as we get in here tight, you can see the stacked I-84 structures in the foreground. Off to the left, you see the stacked Route 8 structures. And then as we keep moving in towards the core, we get a good view here of the system ramps that we've been talking about, which are ramps that connect main lines to main lines. And then we also get an example of a service ramp that is called out there. That's coming up. That's exit 32 coming up for Route 8, heading down to the northbound Riverside. As we continue in, you can really start to get a good view of the levels that we are dealing with here. Just the vertical differences in the roadways. And what we like to refer to, you can see that level 1 is what we're calling the local roads. Level 2 is where we're putting Route 8 at, because it's above the local roads, but it's below I-84, which is sitting as a stacked structure at level 3 for westbound and level 4 for eastbound. And also, if you look just off to the right, you can still catch a piece of the Naugatuck River, and seeing we have to go over the Naugatuck River, we like to refer to that as our level 0. Then as we head in further, terms that were utilized a lot by our structural folks and with the bridges deal with the substructure of the bridges, which can be the piers or the foundations or the abutment. And then we also get the bridge superstructure, which is dealing with the steel framing and then also the parapets. And as we go up even further, so we get the last component, which is the bridge decks. And then this is kind of showing you a different view. You can start to see some more of the interchange. And then as we spin our video back down to look south back at the interchange, as you can see Riverside Cemetery off to the right, you can see this not only stacked I-84 right in front of you, but you can see Route 8 starting to form a stack to the south with those system movements coming in on the left. We want to run through this again here, Naomi. We'll just run through this. One other thing to note as we're going through, as the video is running, as we called out those different levels with the different roadways, it's important to note that the ramps that are out there are roadways that change levels. So they, transition between, to carry the vehicles between the different levels as we go through. Okay. So this video kind of gives a rendering of the existing conditions that are out there. But as far as the design team is concerned, we look at the mix master and we see, that there are constraints and considerations and challenges with this site. First of all, we have the natural conditions that are out there. We have the topography with that high ridge line, which leads down into the Naugatuck River Valley. We also have, the topography rises up a little bit. Then we have the Mad River off to the east. We also have the built conditions of Waterbury. Downtown Waterbury sits to the north and east of the core of the interchange, sitting up on a hillside. A lot of the industry in Waterbury started in along the rivers. The railroad followed to support this industry. And that kind of hampered the local roadways as the industry took up large parcels. So local roadways are spread out further. And then also the railroad, restricts the vertical clearance with these local roadways. But the neighborhoods came and built up Waterbury. There are now some environmental justice populations that's a consideration of ours. But then there are also a lot of historic and significant landmarks within the city, and this includes parks, cemeteries, and some historical building districts. One thing that also comes along with the industry, as the industry has faded out, there are some hazardous material sites that we have to be aware of. The design team also looked at all the other projects that are going on within the city of Waterbury, and this can be at the state, federal level, with other projects that are going on with Interstate 84 or with Route 8. It can be regional with other studies that are going on, such as the Naugatuck River Greenway or West Main Street study. And then it can also be on the local level, the Plan of Conservation and Development, or such as the water project, which redeveloped the Freight Street District. One last challenge that we have is on the funding. It's a very expensive project, so we're looking for different ways that this project can be funded. So these are just some of the challenges that are looked at and examined. And from an engineering point of view, I mean, we need to meet the purpose and needs of our project and hit as many of the goals and objectives that we've set for ourselves. And we're trying to do this while minimizing impacts and then also maintaining traffic during construction. Now, this is a little bit from the engineering point of view, but I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Katie Tice, who's going to look at it a little more from the urban planning, urban design point of view.
Great, thanks, David. So at an earlier PAC meeting, I joined and I spoke a little bit about the existing bicycle and pedestrian and transit conditions. We talked about environmental community conditions and some of those key context features. And just to note, a key thing David, just touched upon is there are those historic industrial areas with the large rail and freight, and that began to segment the city. And then the highway infrastructure kind of helped create that more continuous barrier between neighborhoods. So with that understanding, the urban design team has proposed its vision diagram you see here and a statement that would guide our design approach in collaboration with our engineering team. So on the left, you see our statement is currently the interchange is both a regional connector, but it's a community divider. And today, as you see on the right, we envision the new mix serving as both a community connector and a regional transportation resource. And we want to look at this program through the lens of sustainability and equity. So our preliminary approach lays out tactics that we want to utilize in our design to achieve that vision. So our approach is broken into two major thematic areas, places and spaces, and that's tactics such as open space, parks, greenways, and open space, and smart development. High level objectives related to those places and spaces could be these places and spaces may generate enlivened public use around infrastructure, activate abandoned and underutilized corridors and spaces, generate future economic development and strengthen connections to the waterfront. Our connecting corridors tactic can be broken down into safe active routes and enlivened underpasses and overpasses. And some of the high level objectives that we're thinking about in regard to those tactics are creating a connective tissue between neighborhoods and throughout the city, accommodating many users through safe, accessible, multimodal streets, connecting people to key destinations, the historic downtown and wider transportation networks, and also creating unique and site-specific installations to create a greater sense of place. So to note, so we do really see this project as an opportunity to activate spaces, reconnect communities, and we want to consider and support the many ongoing plans and proposals that we know have been in the area for some time, and we want the urban design to show how this project can reflect those. So, so it is important to note that certain urban design elements, as you see this diagram on the right, certain urban design elements will fall under CONDOT's purview, but other items might be a shared responsibility. And we just really want to reflect in the urban design plan all these possibilities, but some things might not fall on CONDOT's purview, could be with others, coordinating with NBCOG, the city, developers, and this is just kind of what that diagram is right trying to indicate. But so that's the kind of the approach and the framework that we'll be looking at going forward. So I'll turn that back to you, Naomi.
Thank you, Katie. And now we're going to transition into introducing the new mixed PEL study universe of alternatives. 23 alternatives have been identified in the universe for being a potential solution for the mixed master interchange. These alternatives will be going through our PEL screening process. In order to define these alternatives, the study team looked at, the program needs, everything that we've gone through as a group today, the conditions that David just presented on, so those constraints, considerations, and challenges. We also looked at those preliminary, high-level improvements and opportunities for the urban design that Katie just presented. And then finally, the study team also consolidated similar or incomplete conceptual alternatives where appropriate. This process resulted in 4 groups of alternatives being identified. Collectively, those 4 groups create our universe of alternatives. And these groups include the no build and alternate travel modes. The investigation of and evaluation of those 2 groups are, I just want to note, a requirement of our PEL and therefore, must be looked at. And then the remaining 2 groupings are the rehabilitation and replacement alternatives, which respectively include options to repair the existing structures and options for constructing new structures. So right now I'm going to hand it back over to David, and he is going to explain some of these groupings a little bit further.
Okay. Thank you, Naomi. With today's meeting, we're going to be looking at the no build alternative. We'll look at alternative modes, and then we'll get into looking at the rehabilitation alternatives. We will not get to the replacement alternatives today, just due to time constraints. But starting off with the no build, this is a baseline condition that must be looked at. There are no additional improvements other than those that are identified in the transportation improvement plan. And these are going to be more of a safety and maintenance activity type. This alternative will not meet any of the structural deficiencies, geometric or operational deficiencies on the mixed master, but this does set our baseline. Next, what is looked at, and again, this is another required of the PEL study, is alternative travel modes. And this could be, bus or rail type of improvements, or it could be at the pedestrian and bicycle level. Now, with these alternate modes, these will not meet the needs for the structural or geometric deficiencies for the interchange, but it could meet some of the operational deficiencies, as this could pull some traffic off of the interchange. Therefore, as Naomi had alluded to, this alternative travel mode is looked as a complementary type of measure, and it's tools that can be pulled forward and used in different alternatives. Okay. Now, as we're going to start getting into looking at the rehab alternatives, it's best to take a quick step back and look at, what are the differences between a rehab and a replacement alternative. So the first thing you look at with your structural deficiencies is you're going to look to improve the bridge conditions. So you can correct or improve them. And now with a rehab, you may have some new structures, but you're going to reuse a lot of your existing structures. Where with a replacement, you're going to get a lot more new structures, and you'll solve, and you'll meet a lot more of your needs with that. As far as your geometric deficiencies, you're going to look to correct or improve those deficiencies that have been identified in the analysis needs and deficiency report. These can include shoulder widths, your travel speeds, or even some of the sharper curves on your geometry out there. One thing that rehabs alternatives will not meet, to limit the amount of improvements you can make to these geometric deficiencies. With operational deficiencies, again, we're looking to correct or improve those. What these could be is this could be your left-handed entrance and exit ramps, it could be your interchange spacing, where you're looking to improve your merging and weaving distances, or it could be looking to improve intersections within the local roadway network. And again, Your rehab strategies, they can limit what you can do to improve your operational deficiencies. So then, just to recap, as we're getting in here, the rehab will be reusing existing structures with a rehabilitation program, and you'll have minor chances to improve the alignments of I-84 Route 8, where with a replacement, you have more opportunities to improve the alignments of your main lines. You also look at some unconventional solutions, such as a bypass or a tunnel. You can look at your interchange, whether if it's going to be a full system interchange or a partial system interchange. And then you also get greater opportunity to improve your local connectivity through your service interchanges and or frontage road system. So what we'll be looking at now are the rehabs, the alternatives that come up for that. And with those, we'll look at the reuse of existing structures. Now, one thing that has gone on with these rehabs is we've proven with the existing rehab project that's going on now is that the decks on Route 8 could be replaced. We have ways that we can make that happen. So a lot of this focus, when we're looking forward to a 2045, the next major rehab, we're looking at these structures will be 80 years old. The concrete decks on Interstate 84 have not been replaced. So a lot of the focus of these rehab alternates is how would we replace the decks on 84? We're limited with detours, so we had to come up with a solution so that we can maintain the traffic while this rehab was going on. So we arrived at 4 alternates, and I'll go through them one at a time. If there are questions that come up, please don't hesitate to ask them as they come up. But the first one we're going to look at would be the true rehab. If we were to maintain traffic, on the existing roadways and on these bridges, which are stacked, we'd have to align our traffic so we could stage our work. And this is something that was brought up during all the stakeholder meetings. This was the alternate where we're looking at these 16-hour work days for 4 years, and still at a very high price, where we'd be, impacting the traffic for a long period of time. The next option we looked at is what we are calling a rehab of the I-84 westbound bridge while we're constructing a new I-84 eastbound main line. So if you look at the graphic, the purple line there is depicting where the new eastbound structure would be built, which is to the south of the existing. And then if you look in the lower left corner, there's a section that we're showing it at this point. Eastbound would be built at the same elevation that the current eastbound bridge is at. We'd overbuild this so that we could maintain both the eastbound and westbound traffic on this structure, while on the existing structure, we would remove the existing eastbound bridge, and then we would rehab westbound, and then we would transfer the westbound traffic back to the existing westbound bridge. So again, to recap, we'd look to build a new I-84 eastbound at about the same elevation as the existing bridge, and we'd be building it to the south of the existing structure. We would then put all the traffic on the new structure. We'd have narrower shoulders, but we'd maintain the eastbound and westbound traffic. And then on the existing bridges, we would remove the eastbound bridge, we'd rehab the westbound bridge, and then we'd move the traffic back. So then I-84 westbound would be in its same exact condition that it is today, only rehabbed, while eastbound would have the newer structure and would have wider shoulders and some improvements. And this is just a quick diagram of where this new alignment would be relative to the existing structure as shown in our from our visualization So the next alternate that we looked at would be a bridge rehabilitation with widening so that we could maintain traffic while this work was going on. Again, now what we're looking at is that the bridge would be, if you look to the section down in the lower left corner, we're showing widening to the north side. And the bridge is remaining in pretty much, in the location that they're at. So what we'd be doing is we'd be building to the north to be able to maintain an additional lane, maybe a little bit more than a lane. And then eventually we just keep working our traffic, staging it so that we would be building, pretty close to a lane width at a time as we work from the north down to the south across these structures, so that in the end condition, our structures, we'd be maintaining the same amount of lanes, but we would be getting better shoulder width on these alternates. Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, is that this is not while the amount of widening on the bridge deck would be fairly constant as we went across the bridge, the widening and where these piers would be located on the north side and the additional structure would be variable, and it could get to some very wide areas, especially when we get into the area of the river or when we get near other roadways or system ramps that need to be maintained. So that would cause this widening to be, we get some very wide structures at some points. So to recap this one, we'd be looking to widen to the north so that we'd get extra width. So then we could start to stage our traffic as we work from north down to south in rehabbing the bridges. And again, it leads to a lot of structural considerations, especially when we get near the river and or within the core of the interchange where there are many intersecting roadways. The next alternate that we looked at, and this is actually the last of the rehab alternates that we looked at, would be looking to build a bypass roadway, which we'd be building this, and it's depicted by the purple line on the plan there, immediately to the south of the existing viaduct, the existing stacked I-84 structures. And we look to overbuild this and put all of the I-84 traffic onto this bypass roadway while the existing eastbound and westbound bridges were rehabbed. So then in the final condition, I-84 eastbound and I-84 westbound would be at their same widths, the same narrow shoulders, but the bridges would be rehabbed. We'd have new decks. You could possibly replace some superstructure with these. The bypass roadway at the end of construction, we'd use this bypass roadway as a frontage road in the eastbound direction. So this bypass would then replace exits 21 and 22. So it would come down off the ridge line and bring this local traffic down into the city of Waterbury. This frontage road would intersect at Bank Street and or South Main, and be able to carry that local traffic down into the city. So to recap, we build this bypass roadway to the south of the existing structures. We'd carry all of the I-84 traffic on this while the existing bridges were rehabbed. And then on the final condition, we'd convert this bypass roadway to a frontage roadway in the eastbound direction, where it would replace exits 21 and 22 and provide access from I-84 eastbound down into the city of Waterbury. Now, all these alternates are being looked at. So just to summarize them one last time, we looked at a true rehab, where we'd be maintaining the existing structures and maintaining traffic on them. And what this is going to require would be reduced travel lanes, long work periods, 16-hour work days for a 4-year time period. And then, we'd have the same existing structures when the rehab was completed. We looked at, the second one was constructing a new I-84 eastbound at the same elevation as existing, just to the south, remove the existing eastbound bridge and rehab westbound. Third alternate would be to widen both bridges to the north side and be able to stage our traffic going across from north to south. And then the last option was constructing a bypass roadway to maintain the traffic while the existing structures were being maintained. And then at the end, this bypass would be repurposed as a frontage road for I-84 eastbound, providing access to the city of Waterbury. So those are the summary. Great. So at the end, with the rehab alternates, all of our bridges and structures would still be 80 years old. There would be certain components that would be replaced, such as the deck and possibly some superstructure, but your substructure would still be 80 years old. We'd be looking at complex and lengthy construction sequencing. We'd have limited opportunities to improve geometric and operational conditions. There'd be limited opportunities for urban design improvements, and it's still going to be fairly costly. We're looking in the $1 billion range in today's dollars. So that is a recap on the alternates that have been looked at. With
David,
that,
we have a question from Brian Peterson.
you bet.
Take it away, Brian.
I'm just wondering, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
The last one you proposed, or is there one that would, and forgive me if I'm not, understanding it all, but is there one, and I look like the last one you did, to take out all the truckers and all the through traffic, put them on a different road and allow us local people that just want to pop on and off to be on a different road, or that's not possible?
No, with the rehab, you're talking with option 4 there, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, what we would look to do is, and Naomi, can we go backwards to that one? But as we're going back, can we go back one more, please? What we'd be looking to do is we'd look to build a new bridge just to the south. And then what we do is we cross over the traffic both in the eastbound and westbound directions onto that bypass roadway. So the roadway to the left would be overbuilt and would maintain 5 to 6 lanes of traffic to handle I-84 traffic while the eastbound and westbound bridges were rehabbed. Then the I-84 eastbound and westbound traffic would be moved back to the existing bridges. But that bypass, the new structure, the bypass structure that was built to the south, then that would take the traffic from I-84 eastbound that's looking to get to downtown Waterbury, either through exit 21 or 22 presently. We'd take all that traffic off and we'd bring them down on this roadway, and they would intersect at Bank Street and then, carry across with Market Square and then onto McMahon. So it'd be like a continuous frontage road down there. So that local traffic from I-84 eastbound would be able to intersect at Bank and then be able to get into downtown Waterbury.
No, are you saying then that is a different road than that the truckers and all the through people would take? Or
that is, exits 21 and 22 would be removed in this condition. And then this bypass really becomes exit 21 and 22 in the eastbound direction. So the truckers and all the through traffic would go back onto where I-84 eastbound is presently, you know, on the top of the stacked structure and carry through with Interstate 84. This bypass, the roadway that we're calling a bypass in the section there on the left corner, that becomes a frontage road. So it's really just I-84 eastbound to get into downtown Waterbury.
Yeah, David, I think that what Brian's asking is if the local roadway network, which presently has access, I believe, from Highland Avenue in that region, would be able to jump on the bypass and then get off in the downtown across the river. Have we investigated anything like that?
No, I'm sorry, I missed that point. No, that entrance ramp would have to be removed, you know, in order to build this bypass. So that ramp would be taken out of service.
I guess, you know, as the gentleman just explained, I guess that's simply what I was saying. If maybe I live in a euphoria and the world can't be that simple, but where the local people like us that are just popping on and off to go locally wouldn't have to mix with the truckers and all the through people that are going from Massachusetts to New York or whatever. Yeah, that's what I was really asking.
Yeah, I think if you got in, the Highland Avenue entrance would not be open to that, but you know, if you got in off of Chase Parkway, you would be put in that auxiliary lane, which would put you right on to that bypass road. So you wouldn't have to merge in with the traffic. You could stay right in the lane that you come in on and then take the bypass right into downtown Waterbury. So
Thank you. Thank
a
you.
little bit of improvement.
Mark Nielsen has a question.
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. I'm with NVCOG. Just going back to your sort of the alternative transportation modes, sort of the second alternative. I noticed there weren't any local road improvement considerations. It was, you know, transit, you know, bus lanes, things like that. You know, but there's a number of local road improvements that could possibly be implemented that would address, as the gentleman before was talking about, you know, if you just wanted to hop on the Mixmaster to go from one side of the city to the other, well, maybe you could do that if you improve some of the local street connections. I mean, is your team thinking about those, or is that sort of, you know, we're not looking at local road improvements?
No, local road improvements, you know, with a lot of the, you know, with how Waterbury was built up, you know, we're seeing a lot of deficiencies there, you know, especially within the vicinity of the core of the interchange. You know, there's limited crossings of the Naugatuck River. That ridge line really prevents a lot of roadways that truly go east to west through the city and over the river. I mean, we're really only identifying West Main Street as the only roadway that does that. You know, and then those large tracts of land that were taken up by industry really limit the number of local roads, you know, and then the railroad acts as a vertical constraint, you know, with access into downtown. So improving the local roadway network has been, you know, high on our list throughout, as a way, you know, our O&D study showed us that, you know, 35% of the vehicles on the interchange get in and off within the study area. So if we can improve the local roadway network, you know, through frontage roads or other means, you know, we can start to remove some of that traffic off of the interchange. So it's something we're concentrating on a lot there, Mark.
David, if I could just add to that, one of the terms that Naomi used earlier were complementary projects. And those are the projects that work with a multitude of replacement or rehabilitation alternatives that work with them, could work with them all. And those are the ones we've identified, those local road improvements that are potential projects that could alleviate some of that congestion and pull some of that traffic off of the interchange to help improve to help improve conditions.
Right, and I guess the question is, you're going to identify some of those specifically, because I would guess that, you know, one, making some of these local road improvements are going to be, you know, still expensive, you know, and the city can't, you know, afford to do them on their own. So they're going to be looking for state and federal funds. And if it's somehow connected or identified as complementary to the new mix project, that it might give it, a little bit higher priority, when the state's looking at how they're going to, put projects on their capital improvement program or the transportation improvement programs, things like that. So I think it's still worth, identifying those kinds of improvements that the city could pursue or the state could pursue, that complements, because again, quite honestly, this project, again, you're talking about 2045. I mean, we're talking, over 20 years into the future. We need to be thinking about what we can do to improve traffic flow through the city, more immediate than that. So I think it's still important to identify those and to, make sure they're sort of identified as a way of alleviating some of the congestion being caused by the mixed packs.
Yeah, no, and that's a perfect segue, Mark, because, we've been showing within these PAC meetings and with the stakeholders is these early action projects, which is looking to do some of those local roadway type of improvements, whether if it's, at the off ramps or certain intersections, that would help pull some of this flow off and, and improve the flow through the city. But another consideration we have off of that also is, we don't want to be making some big improvements that could, influence or, force us in a direction of an alternative. So we're trying to keep it very broad. There's a lot of things that are looked at with those intersections, and we're trying to accomplish or push forward projects that we think will be helpful. And those are ones we're working on at this time. And those, I know we had talked about it, and those will be stuff that'll be coming before the PAC meeting, and before this PAC at a future meeting will be a bunch of those early action projects.
All right, thanks.
Can I chime in here a minute, please?
Certainly can.
What you're talking about right now about that extra lane on the eastbound lane, as we speak right now, they're doing that right now on the westbound side of the Mixmaster from the on ramp at exit 20. You're building another lane running alongside 84 westbound to get off exit 21, and that's going to be a huge a big favor to motorists that are trying to get downtown Waterbury, trying to cut over, and it's just going to be so less for motorists trying to get on the highway. They get on the highway right now westbound and try to get off exit 21. This is going to be a separate lane that goes from beyond ramp 20 to the exit 21. I think it's going to be great for the motorists and so much less dangerous trying to get off exit 21. I'm not sure if everybody knew about this that's going on right now, but it is taking place right now.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, no, that was actually a project. That was an early action project that was identified through this project with this design team, and it was, when it was put forward to senior management at Condot, they looked at it as something that was very favorable. Again, it's what we're talking about. Is we're talking about the entrance ramp that comes on from Union Street, exit 22, opposite the Brass Mill Mall, and we build that auxiliary lane as there's enough width to go underneath Baldwin Street and South Main Street, and then would match in just before the South Main Street overpass, so that that lane would come on and it would drop right off at exit 21. So that was identified, and it's going in as a change order to with the existing rehab project, and that is scheduled for construction this spring and summer.
Yeah, I understand all you guys, your engineers and your DOT gentlemen and ladies that are on here now knew about it, but I'm not sure anybody in this meeting on the outside was known that this was going to happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that up, Ken. That was it is good information to share with people.
Okay, I do want to just ask if there are any additional questions from anyone on the call right now. Feel free to raise your hand or insert it into the chat, and we do have some time to go through and provide some additional information if necessary.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily need to be questions either. We're looking for your reactions to the rehabilitation alternatives, the no-build alternative, other travel modes, all the stuff we talked about. So Eric, I see that you raised your hand, Eric Hazelton.
Yeah, thanks. Just going off of that project that is in the works, that Ken Stako just identified, that's a near-term or short-term project, however you're defining it, that is being tied in with the rehabilitation project. I know that there's been stormwater concerns with the rehabilitation project, and wondering why we're not taking the time to make improvements to stormwater quality coming off of that. And so I've understood that that project is separate from these meetings. So with that being said, is there an opportunity for folks to be pulled into the project that was the rehab project number 4? To kind of get an understanding of what's going on there, and then seek stormwater and like other, be able to just like voice our concerns or just understand the process. Is there an opportunity for folks to get involved in that?
Eric, you're talking about getting involved with the existing rehab project to voice your concerns with that?
So the project that Ken Stanko identified, that has been moved forward, and it was identified by the planning team, right?
Yeah, but has become part of the existing rehab project. So that will not be going to a public information meeting. That's going out to construction.
Okay, so that skipped the public process.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to just bring up that project, and anyone on that team, just feel free to hop in. But that project just involves the restriping of a lane, and does not involve like the construction of a new structure or anything like that. Which is why when we look at the requirements of our public involvement, when we have a project that has minimal changes to the existing conditions, does not add additional impervious area or things like that, we will follow the requirements of our of the planning and our public involvement process.
Oh, so is that project like a lane shift? It's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
It wasn't like anything,
I'm gonna have to cut you off there, Naomi. No,
okay.
There is a part of it out there was previous roadway structure back in between how the staging of I-84 went in. There used to be an old entrance ramp that came in off of South Elm Street. So, but for the most part, it is pretty much new lane from Baldwin Street down through South Elm. So there is some new roadway construction out there for the lane.
Can I speak?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Kevin. I was waiting
Hi.
to see if any follow-up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll wait.
No, don't wait. Please chime in.
Okay, question regarding MS4s and anything similar to that, TMDLs. Is the FERB doing the project or the state responsible for that? And do you have a separate MS4 that applies to this project, and you are not bound by state, the new state MS4?
Heaven, I'm not quite sure if I'm understanding the question. Do you mind repeating it for me?
Okay, if a firm or even a city exists, whether it's on the Naugatuck River or anywhere else, it is required to abide by the MS4, correct? Like the city of Waterbury has to do certain things, correct?
Yes, yep.
So this here, we got a big, massive project that affects stormwater, correct?
Yep, yep.
Okay. Do you have to, or does the MS4s that the other towns on the Naugatuck River have to abide to and strive to and toward? Do they apply to this, or is there a separate C.MS4 that is written differently than the current updated MS4? And one other, a second part of that is TMDLs, companies that discharge into the Naugatuck River have to abide by total maximum daily loads of certain contaminants into the Naugatuck River. Does this project have to look into those, be part of, or is everything exempt because it's a state and federal project?
Nothing exempt. This is Neil Patel with the DOT. So first of all, yeah, the MS4 guidelines, and I believe we have maybe our environmental folks on also, are specific to, you know, the municipalities, the requirements for the municipalities. The state has a separate stormwater quality that we have to meet, you know, in terms of with deep standards. So we've got other standards that are just as strict, and every project is considered, is screened, and it goes through that stormwater quality process. The thing I think we have to remember here is the rehab project currently is went through that screening process during the design process. And again, the rehabilitation project is not adding, you know, per se, you know, in terms of it's strictly rehabilitation within the existing decks, within the existing widths. So, you know, they did go through that process in terms of the stormwater quality. And Dave, I know maybe, you know, you mentioned, you remember going through that in the design process. So the first part of that is, yeah, we do. The state has to meet strict requirements, right, through deep, but the MS4 guidelines are specific to municipalities.
To be clear, where can I find those standards and the final report on how you are adhering to those standards or have actually met those standards?
So I would have to, we'll have to defer to our environmental folks in terms of some of the documents on the rehabilitation project. Dave, are you familiar with that process that we went through on the rehabilitation project?
Yeah,
Well,
no,
is that public? Is it public?
there was a public information meeting on this that was held back in October of 2017.
With meetings, minutes, right? Yeah.
Yep, and there are minutes online. Yeah, and then as far as what Neil was talking to, I mean, we designed to the Condot Drainage Manual and then also to the 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual. When we add in or when we do drainage, along these highways. So those are the standards that we have designed to and met on this project.
Can you send the links to us so we could see those?
Links to those manuals? Sure.
And those minutes, so we could see what was done.
And there's plenty of information on our DOT website.
I've been trying. It's hard to navigate that stuff.
Yeah.
If you could direct me a little bit more. Again, we're volunteers here.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have to do it during watching a golf game or football or basketball. If we could try to mix a little pleasure with this as we work our regular jobs. So
Understand.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Go ahead, Naomi. Sorry.
Yeah, so I just sent in a link in the chat for everyone, which links to the Connecticut DOT Stormwater Quality Management Program, which the DOT does have their own MS4 program because they are a unique entity, and they do their program is just slightly different than those of the municipalities, albeit they do still have an MS4 program. So Kevin, hopefully you'll find some of the information that you are looking for on this website, as well as people you can contact for any questions concerning Connecticut DOT's MS4 program.
And so you'll send me the links of this particular project's responses to those standards, correct? Or do I have to go find, I have to piece it all together?
No, I will send you whatever we have, Kevin. I have
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I think it'd be important for you to, to see this, and what we adhere to as designers, what those standards are, we're really looking to, and it's been a huge shift over the last, couple of decades, is really trying to improve the stormwater quality. It's not the approach of, hey, let's get rid, let's collect the water and get rid of it as soon as possible anymore. It really is hey, let's collect the water to make sure it's safe to drive, but we're not just going to discharge this right out. We've got to go through steps to get, your primary or your secondary treatments on this water as it comes off the roadway.
You do understand my concern because of my experience with the Mixmaster and directly into the Naugatuck River. I can't see anything, nor have I ever heard of any mitigation in that regard. Though I agree and believe with what you're doing. It's in conflict with what my experience is. I guess my point is after the many decades.
Yeah, and what you'll find going out there with the rehab project now, and I know this is really kind of getting a little bit off topic, but all the discharges that are coming off the bridges, now have energy dissipators at the bottom of them, and look back to how the temporary bypass was constructed and all the quality measures that were put on that roadway, even in a temporary condition. So. But I will get this information to you.
Thank you.
I just have a quick kind of follow-up question to what Kevin was saying. So this is Eric Hazelton from HVA. He was referring to the stormwater for the rehabilitation project, but I just had a question moving forward and looking at the Mixmaster. Is that when will you all determine which state DOT MS4 I guess document or legislation you will follow? Because I'm aware of that they're making some amendments or additions in the next coming years. I'm just wondering, like, when you all are making that decision, or if you already have made that decision of, like, are you going to use like the one that was issued on May 24th, 2018, for example?
So the Connecticut DOT has their MS4 program, which was issued July 1st of 2019. So we will, at this point, we'll be, adhering to those requirements. If there are any, future changes or, amendments to that, permit requirement, and we have not moved into design, then we will adhere to those latest design requirements. But, at this point in time, the best that we can tell you is that we'll be using the July 1st, 2019 MS4 program that has been delineated for the DOT.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. Are there any more questions or comments or anything like that at this time? Martin, Bagnell? I see your hands raised. You are muted.
Unmute. Okay. Hello. Thank you. Is it fair to say that those alternatives of rehab or no build have already been dismissed? I mean, how far along are you in that process to determine you'll be moving forward with the full replacement?
Well, we'll go through the full replacements at the next meeting, and we'll, but you can see how the costs are, and then we'll start getting into the screening processes as has been laid out by Naomi with the funnel. We'll get through those different levels of the screening, and we'll start pulling alternatives out at that point. To right now, nothing has been dismissed at this point.
Okay, I guess that was my question. Thank you.
You can see the advantages and the disadvantages of them, but as we apply it to our criteria, then they'll start to fall off.
Thank you.
We have a comment in the chat from John DiCarlo. So this is, are there any updates available regarding the PAC's input that could be shared with members to share with their respective organizations? John, can you provide a little bit more context on that, or maybe a little bit of rephrase?
Sure, Chris, I appreciate it. I represent Main Street Waterbury, and there's been a change in the organization. The executive director has moved on and the leadership has changed. And I'd like to provide kind of an update regarding, we get these updates sent to us pre each meeting, but an update on where things are at currently in the process. I've been looking at the New Mix website, but it's kind of like set up when the project started, when the PAC started. So I don't know if there's any kind of update that could be shared with us to share with our respective organizations on where we're at. I mean, I've taken notes and I could certainly share the slide decks I've been sent, but I don't know if there's any kind of recap that gets done periodically.
Yeah, I don't know that we have something queued up and ready to send to you, but Naomi, do you think that basically a quick recap that's summarizing some of this presentation would be pretty easy for John's purpose, what he's describing?
Yeah, absolutely. We can put together just the information and the input that PAC members have provided so far and how it's influenced the program thus far. When we do, the majority of the input has been encapsulated and updated in our preliminary purpose needs statement report, and that document will be uploaded to the website, and it provides a good base of where we are looking at in our PEL study and the needs and some of our goals and objectives, as well as the purpose for this project, which will help clarify, and you all will be able to see where that PAC input was incorporated.
Naomi, do you think you could go to that slide with the process that shows the process out?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And
John, let me ask a question here to John DiCarlo. So earlier on, it was asked about the reports of the meetings so far, and I know we still have a couple that we have to add to the website, but is that more of what you're looking for, or a synopsis of the discussions at these meetings?
Well, meeting minutes are great, but kind of a synopsis of where things are at now, or a periodic update would probably be helpful for everybody to say, hey, as of this quarter, this is kind of where we're at, versus us trying to put together or share meeting minutes with everyone in our organizations.
Right.
Yeah, I think this is the roadmap you're looking for, John, probably with just a little bit more explanation as to what
this was a good starting point. Exactly. The slides that's up now is a good starting point.
Yeah, because this does cover what we've done up through this point. I mean, some of the steps that precede where we are in this milestone, they aren't finalized at this time, but a lot of the work in those steps of the process have been done up to this point. So I think we could get you a brief summary to
just fleshing
Sure.
it out a bit, because I took notes. I appreciate it, Chris. I took notes as far as safety perceptions, importance of reducing congestion, efficiencies and needs, the obviously the frontage road that was just discussed today, but some kind of fleshing of what's out here of things that have been talked about and, you know, considered would probably be helpful to share with our respective organizations.
Understood.
Right, but thank you.
Naomi,
Hi, Art. Yeah.
if I may, has there been any discussion on expanding our footprint with either within the width, height, and any additional land acquisition going forward?
I will defer to David, but one of the rehabilitation alternatives did include widening of the existing structures, but I do want to note the capacity, I believe, is maintained in those conditions.
Yeah, I think, Arthur, you will see a lot more at our next PAC meeting, where we'll start going through a bunch of the replacement alternatives that have been developed, you know, and be able to see, you know, the impacts to different properties. You get to see a little bit more of, you know, elevation wise, you know, where these structures are going. So you'll get a better handle after the next PAC meeting.
Okay, that will be good, because obviously, you know, when we start acquiring land, that's going to affect property owners, and obviously, as you know, the tax
Yeah.
ramifications.
No, it's something that's on our mind as of the design team, you know, and with CONDOT also. You know, we're trying to minimize the impacts while we replace this. You know, it's a little bit of a juggling act here. You know, can't sit here and tell you that nobody's going to be impacted, because there will be. But, you know, we're looking to minimize and, you know, get us a better mix master here for the future.
Okay, thanks.
All right, as we conclude this presentation, I did want to just give a brief reminder that we do want to be a little bit more clear with being able to obtain PAC input on the initial documents that we are going to upload to the program website, that you will be able to provide input and comments on before we get into our screening process. So before we start making screening decisions and removing, you know, unfavorable and undesirable concepts. We do want to get your input on our preliminary purpose and needs statement. And again, those includes the purpose, the needs, the goals and objectives that we've all worked together in identifying and incorporating into our study. And, you know, the analysis needs and deficiencies report, which outlines those existing and future forecasted conditions and considerations for the NUMIX program. I will alert you to when those files are available. At this point, they are living. I do want to note that they are living. They will be revised as we gain and continue to gain input from the public, from PAC members, as well as agencies. But we just want to make sure that you all have the opportunity to provide your input and your comments and provide this information to the organizations that you represent. With that, I do want to note that we are asking for comments by May 2nd, just on these very early initial documents. That's in order so that we can incorporate your comments into our study and begin to start to finalize some of these documents so that we can use them to make those screening decisions in the future. I did also add here that if you do not want to comb through all of those two documents that are, you know, rather robust, there will be an additional opportunities for PAC members to provide their input as a member of the general public. We'll be asking, you know, these basic questions. These are listed on the screen, or just some sample questions that we may be asking you to help inform our Pell study and the documents that we are developing. And again, these will all be documented and listed into our program, and ultimately added to our website so that anyone can view and read the responses that we get. We really just want to make sure that we provide PAC members with the chance to provide input on those initial Pell documents before our screening process and decision-making process begins. And then I do want to note that additional opportunities will be provided to members of the public to provide input as the study progresses. So no, this is not the last time for you all to provide input. Input will be asked for at each of those milestones and stages. This is just some of the questions we are asking the general public as we prepare for our public information meetings in the future.
Can I say something before you guys go?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, Martin from Waterville Community Club.
Hi, Martin.
I just want to say that, are we going to be meeting, I've been on the phone for a while, I don't have Zoom obviously, but are we going to be meeting in the future face-to-face or what's going on? Because if we do, we should find a place that's very accessible to everybody to meet, if that's possible. You know, obviously in Waterbury.
Yes. At this point in time, I believe our public information meeting will be virtual. That's just to be in line with the DOT's requirements because of, you know, the ongoing pandemic. If there's any additional, you know, information from anyone from DOT, please feel free to add it. But hopefully in the future, we can, you know, provide a hybrid version of these public meetings so that people will be able to meet, you know, face-to-face and have that face-to-face discussion that we all, you know, really, really want, but are unfortunately unable to do. But in the future, we're hoping to be able to provide that as well.
Yeah.
The reason I bring that up is because we have the Waterville Community Club meets at the old Waterville Firehouse, and it's easy access in Waterville up Thomason Avenue, up by the motor vehicle, and it's we have plenty of park, and I'm sure we could probably make some accommodations for you guys if you need that.
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, Martin, specifically for these PAC meetings, I don't think we've evaluated going in person at this time, but you know, if there is a strong desire for that from a majority, I'd say, of PAC members, it's something that we would have to consider.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that.
Great, thank you. And I do just want to note, just looking ahead for the upcoming and future PAC meetings, on the screen, we have the three PAC 3 milestone meetings that we are anticipated. Today was just our PAC meeting 3A. Our next meeting is anticipated to be April 29th. That is a Friday, the last Friday of April. And that is going to be on Zoom as well. And I'll be sure to, you know, email the presentation file ahead of the meeting so that those who do not have Zoom can, you know, follow along with the presentation if possible. And then the meeting after PAC meeting 3B will occur in mid-May. And with that, I'll ask if there are any remaining questions or comments from anyone.
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing before we leave. I hope I didn't confuse anyone on the new lane that's being built now on the west side of 84. I know it has nothing to do with the new mix. I was just using it as a comparison to the bypass lane you want to build across exit 21 and 22, and how it's going to help motorists get on and off into the city much easier and less dangerous.
Thank you, Ken, for that clarification. All right, I'll conclude the meeting with this thank you slide. And again, we are all very grateful for your participation and input on these PAC meetings. I'll make sure to email you all with a closing email with all the information that we've discussed today. And with that, we'll close.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, thank you,
Have a
everyone.
great day.
Here, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.